Good morning, everybody, and welcome back to Coffee with Craig. We very much appreciate you guys tuning in, taking the time to join us and be a part of the conversations. We talk about the Second Amendment advocacy, policy, you name it, politics, culture, movies, anything gun-related, and the advocacy for our right to keep and bear arms. We're talking about it here on Coffee with Craig. Wanted to, before we kind of get into our show, first of all, I want to remind you guys, please subscribe to our YouTube channel, like our Facebook page. Folks, listen, the more you are following us, the more we can show people, like our sponsors, like Sacramento Black Rifle and Sparks Black Rifle, the more we can show them that you guys are watching, that you guys are tuning in, the easier it is for us to be able to get support, get endorsements in order, well, to keep this show running, but also to advocate on behalf of your constitutional right to keep and bear arms. So please subscribe to our YouTube channel if you haven't already done so. Please also make sure to follow us on Facebook, and make sure you're following us so that you can get the alerts whenever we are going live. All right, now one of the things I wanted to do, and every once in a while I get people who will send me product or send me some swag, send me something to try. We don't do a lot. I don't do a lot of product endorsements and stuff like that. In terms of checking them out. As I've always said, I'm not a firearms expert. I'm probably the average everyday person who's into firearms and interested in. I've got my concealed permit and all of that. But one of the things that I had a chance to try out that these folks sent to me, it's called the Clinger holster. Now, the one in particular that they sent to me, it is a clipless holster for concealed carry permits, and in the waistband holster. It's right here. I got this several months ago, and rather than just get it and try it out for a week or two, I wanted to actually take some time. I wanted to use it. I wanted to carry with it. I wanted to kind of beat it up a little bit and use it in a bunch of different ways. With several of my different firearms. I have several firearms that I use to carry. All of them are pretty much about the same size. I've used all of them with this particular holster, and I just wanted to say that I could not recommend this holster enough. It's relatively inexpensive. It's so much better for people who are considering, what I like about it is I can use it whether I'm carrying in the front, whether I'm carrying in the side, or whether I'm carrying in the back. You can use it pretty much any which way. Now, I warn you got to make sure you got a good belt with it, because it's still, once again, you're still basically doing it in your waistband. But I really appreciated it. I really have found to come and like this one. I have practiced with it. I've trained with it. I've carried with it. And I just, once again, I can't say enough good things about it. In particular for the price point, if you look on their website, it's only listed at $19.99, which is totally inexpensive. So I want to encourage you guys, check it out. The link is in the description of this video. And if you find it, I think it is worth trying. So I just wanted to let you guys know. I wanted to let the folks know over at Clinger Holsters. Thank you so very much for sending it. And I have found it to be a very good product, in particular for the everyday guy who has a concealed carry permit and carries on a regular basis. I've found it to be really good. So check them out. It's Clinger Holsters. Once again, this one in particular is the clipless Clinger holster. Check it out. Okay, moving right along. It is post-election day. And I know that yesterday was the day after the election, and we wanted to take a little bit of time to kind of take a look at all the elections, kind of how they panned out and whatnot, and then have a little bit of a conversation with you in terms of what does this mean for gun owners? What does this mean for the Second Amendment? And we've got everything from kind of the big macro to even some micro stuff that we're going to be talking about today. So let's dig right in, shall we? Let's start off talking about the Senate race. Let's start talking about the U.S. Senate and national and federal elections. Now, a lot of people are talking about quote unquote, our Republicans or the pro-gun party, are they going to be able to maintain? Are they going to lose control of the House and the Senate? And what we have here is a map. And this is a map that's basically breaking down all of the states that are competitive and all of the races that are competitive. And one of the things, and I won't get into all of the details of what's going on in the map, but following the elections that took place a day before yesterday, one of the things that you'll notice here is the number of seats that are competitive and are in play, that are both Republican or Democrat, or pro-gun party and anti-gun party. And one of the things that's really interesting to note here is that there are basically 25 Democratic seats that are in play, and there are 9 Republican seats that are in play. 25 anti-gun party seats and 9 pro-gun party seats. But here's where it really gets interesting. Where it gets interesting is only 2 of the 9 seats that are pro-gun seats are actually competitive, where the other party actually stands a chance of actually being able to win that election. Whereas with the anti-gun Democrats, if you look at it, there's 11 seats now that are actually going to be competitive, which basically means this. They stand a much greater chance, at least in the Senate, of losing ground than they do of gaining ground. If they did a bang-up job and held all 11 of those seats, and then won the 2 competitive seats that are held by Republicans, their net gain in that would be 2 seats. Now, that's in an area right now that's really, really close, but I don't really see that happening. I don't see them holding all of their seats, and I don't see them necessarily winning both of the competitive seats that are held by Republicans. So that means that there's a very, very good, in all likelihood, the U.S. Senate will remain in control of the pro-gun party. Now, we're still waiting for them to do some pro-gun stuff. We're still waiting for them to pass concealed carry reciprocity. We're still waiting for them to pass the SAFE Act. But at the very least, we at least know that they're not going to be passing a bunch of anti-gun legislation. So that's something that's important to note. It's also important to note what's going on here in the state, what's going on in the House. Now, there's a lot of people who are looking for them to be able to win the House. Now, how was that affected yesterday? Well, one of the big states that they're after in the House is going to be the state of California. There are a number of seats that they are after, and they're hoping that by swinging five plus seats in the state of California, by taking those seats, they are going to be able to hopefully take back, or the anti-gun party is hoping to take back the House of Representatives. Well, incumbent upon that is you have to have, one of the things that we had yesterday was we were really kind of looking, and there was a concern that there might not be a pro-gun candidate on the ballot in November in the state of California. There might not be a Republican candidate. The 2 leading candidates going into the day were Antonio Villaraigosa, the anti-gun Democrat who's the former mayor of Los Angeles, and the anti-gun, gun-grabbing Gavin Newsom, who is the former mayor of San Francisco, current lieutenant governor, author of Proposition 63, which is a horrible anti-gun proposition that passed here in the state of California. Well, lo and behold, we had a gentleman named John Cox, who is, I always say this, when it comes to whether or not someone is pro-gun, all we know is that he's saying the right things, because he's never held elective office before, so we don't know exactly how he would vote. But we do know that, at least from the interview that I did with him back in October, we do have a pretty good idea that he is pro-gun. That he does reasonably support the right to keep and bear arms. More importantly, as a Republican at the top of the ticket, he will have the resources to be able to run a campaign that, whether or not he wins, which him winning in the state of California, let's be honest, is a long shot. It's going to be a tough one. He's running against one of the most unpopular people who ever run for governor in California. But having said that, it's still a long shot for a Republican to win. But he does have the resources and the organization to help make sure that lower ticket candidates or down ticket candidates will have the ability to have some sort of support, some sort of institutional, structural support as they run their campaigns. Someone who's going to make sure that the quote-unquote pro-gun Republican voters will show up to the polls and vote for the pro-gun Republican candidates. At the top of the ticket, Mr. Cox, because people tend to show up mostly for the top of the ticket, but they'll also, if they show up for the top of the ticket, well, heck, might as well vote for the people down ticket as well. And there's a bunch of people that are lowered, that are further down. And a number of those folks in those seats, by the way, those further down seats, even though they have Democratic challengers, many of them got either in the high 40s or the 50 or over 50% of the vote in the primary election, which means as long as we turn people out, these incumbents will continue to win and move on to the next level, which means that the hopes of anti-gun Democrats of taking back majorities in the House or the Senate, well, the big blue wave might not necessarily be as big as they thought. It may just be a ripple, if that. Anyway, so that's some good news from, at least from the federal level, in terms of what we're able to see. And also, if you want to see the interview with John Cox that I did, you can also look at the link in the description of this video, and there'll be a link to that interview that I did with John Cox, so you can get a little bit of a better feel for the Republican candidate for governor here in the state of California. Moving right along. On a more local level, we have an incumbent sheriff, Sheriff Stan Sniff. Now, this is a sheriff who, well, let's just say that we have concerns with his position on concealed carry. He says that he supports concealed carry, but if you review his policy is, well, it's highly suspect. There's stuff in the policy that is not legal. At least as we have deemed, there's stuff in the policy that is not legal, or documents that are required that are not necessarily required. And in public statements that he's made, where he pretty much he largely supports the idea of exercising his discretion in terms of who he thinks should and should not get concealed carry permits. In fact, there was an article not too long ago that there was a wait in Riverside County of up to a year and a half before you even can get on the list in order to receive a concealed carry permit. Now, I know that he doesn't get more requests than Sacramento County Sheriff Scott Jones, and yet somehow he's managed to reduce his backlog down to almost nothing. It's literally, I think it's like 4 or 5 months before you can set an appointment. In fact, I just renewed mine, and I literally 3 days after submitting my information, I got a letter saying, yeah, it was approved. Come on down and get your permit. So I don't know what's going on with Mr. Sniff, but he's got some real issues when it comes to concealed carry and the law. Now, mind you, this is so election results came in, and he received 33% of the vote in his election, which, by the way, and with multiple candidates, he was not the lowest vote getter. But guess what? He didn't get a plurality, which means he didn't get a majority, which meant there's going to be a runoff. But he wasn't even the highest vote getter. That's right. A gentleman who challenged him got 38% of the vote. And so he is going to be going into the general election. He is going to be going into the general election as not the front runner, but he's going to be the underdog, the incumbent underdog. And for people who don't know, that's all. For someone holding an incumbent holding a seat like this, that is almost unheard of. To not just that someone forced a runoff, but that he is actually going to now be the underdog candidate there in Riverside County. So it's going to be very, very interesting to see how that particular campaign bends out. His opponent, he has stated that he leans towards shall issue. I don't know exactly what that means, except that he says that, well, he believes that as long as you can pass the background check, you take all of the required courses, and there are no mental health issues, that you should be able to be granted a permit. That's what he means by he leans more towards shall issue. Anyway, but that's an interesting race. And once again, this is in a county that is largely conservative, largely pro-gun. You would think that the sheriff would have a better position on concealed carry. One would think, in particular, since he's supported by other gun rights groups. Anyway, moving right along. Then we have a race. Now, this is an interesting one. So A couple of years ago, you had a candidate, Ling Chang. Ling Chang was sitting in a moderate seat. She was a Republican. She was sitting in a moderate seat and decided to vote multiple times to vote anti-gun, including voting for gun bans. She felt like in her moderate seat, that was the way she needed it to go. In fact, she actually gave back her campaign contribution to the NRA. She's specifically voicing, I am anti-gun. And as a result of her anti-gun positions, she lost her seat to Mr. Josh Newman. Now, for those of you who do not know Josh Newman, he had a very unique position on the right to bear arms. If you Google Josh Newman and bear arms, you're going to get a guy in a bear suit. Yeah, very interesting. You're going to get a guy in a bear suit if you get Josh Newman. Anyway, so he came in, and he hasn't been the worst vote on guns, but he hasn't been the best either. For the most part, on some of the very bad gun bills, he's either voted for it or he's laid off, meaning he's not voted against the bad gun bills, but he didn't vote on them. But he has had some bills where he has voted poorly. But overall, his record on the Second Amendment is better than Ling Chang, the Republican. So the anti-gun Democrat is actually better than the anti-gun Republican who he beat in a Senate race. Well, Mr. Newman has been recalled because of his vote on the gas tax. And he will be replaced now by none other than anti-gun Republican Ling Chang. Now, she says she is not anti-gun, but I just say look to the record. So it will be very, very interesting because one will have to wonder, will Ling Chang continue as she goes through the rest of the unexpired term of Mr. Newman, will she continue to vote anti-gun or will she vote pro-gun? Who knows? But I believe that that her fate will rest in the hands of whether or not if she chooses to vote pro-gun, well then I think she'll stand a very good chance of retaining her seat. If she votes to ban guns the way she did before, could go bad for her. What else do we have here? Oh no, that's actually something from another video. Okay, so we're going to go back to that. So anyway, folks, that's pretty much going to be it for today's Coffee with Craig. Those are the things that are going to be going on with the election. Obviously, as we go forward, we're going to be able to talk about. We're going to be talking a little bit about what's going to be going on with Mr. Gun Grabbing Gavin Newsom. I believe that John Cox, who's running for governor against him, it's going to be an uphill climb, but I'm hoping that the gun community gets behind Mr. Cox. I know there are a lot of people out there who have some questions. Check out the interview. Check him out. I'm sure that you'll find that he will be a good representative. Nothing else, support him so that he can help support the down-ticket candidates so that we can have a pro-gun majority in the House of Representatives. And, well, I guess it won't affect the Senate, the U.S. Senate at all. But at least we'll be able to work to maintain our pro-gun majority in the House of Representatives. Anyway, folks, that's going to be it for today's Coffee with Craig. I thank you so much for tuning in. I thank you for being a part in the fight for our civil rights. Please remember to like and share our video feeds so that your friends can become our friends, become a part of the fight. Because as we all know, this is a fight for our civil rights. We got to use them or we're going to lose them. You guys take care.
If you like our videos, follow, subscribe, like, and share.